The silence in the boardroom was louder than any argument that had come before it. 20 floors above the city, inside a glass-walled conference room shaped like a cathedral of money and power, 8 people stared at a screen that refused to change. A red line, falling, steep, relentless. $200 million. That was the number glowing in the corner of the projection. Not lost yet, but moving toward loss with the calm certainty of gravity. No one breathed. Not the CFO, whose hands were folded so tightly his knuckles had turned pale. Not the legal director, whose eyes kept flicking to the door as if escape were a physical possibility. Not the 7 executives who had built their careers on solving impossible problems and were now watching this one slowly swallow them whole. And certainly not Nathan Cross. He stood at the head of the table. Founder, visionary, billionaire, the man whose name was carved into the city skyline in glass and steel. He did not sit. He had not sat in over an hour. His jacket was off, his tie loosened, his sleeves rolled up in a way that felt almost violent for someone known for surgical composure. He stared at the numbers, not with fear, with something worse, disbelief. "This doesn't make sense," Nathan said quietly. Not a statement, a refusal. "We modeled every variable, every market, every political outcome, every regulatory path." His voice was steady, but something brittle lived underneath it. "There is no version of this scenario where we lose $200 million. No one answered. The red line continued its slow descent. Across from him, Evelyn Price, the CFO, swallowed. "We didn't miss anything," she said. "We ran it 3 times. The legal director nodded. The strategy lead nodded. The market analyst nodded. 7 heads, moving in agreement. 7 careers on the line. 7 people who had failed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, in the most terrifying way possible, by doing everything right." Nathan exhaled slowly through his nose. The city beyond the glass wall glowed with evening light. Traffic lines shimmered. Buildings reflected the sky. People moved through their lives unaware that somewhere above them, the future of a billion-dollar company and thousands of jobs was balancing on a line of code. "What's the trigger?" Nathan asked. Silence. He turned. "What is the first thing that makes this start to fall?" Evelyn hesitated, then said, "It's not a thing. It's a sentence." Nathan looked at her. She looked uncomfortable now. "A sentence?" She nodded. "A single statement. A clause in a regulatory document that hasn't been released yet." Nathan's jaw tightened. "What does it say?" Evelyn hesitated again. Then she reached for the remote. The screen changed. A single line appeared. Plain text. No graphics, no drama, just words. "Any platform facilitating third-party financial decision automation must assume liability for outcomes influenced by its tools." Nathan stared. The room waited. He read it again, slowly. Then again, faster. Then he laughed. Once, sharp, disbelieving. "That's it?" he said. "That's the problem?" No one joined his laugh. "That's not a problem," Nathan said. "That's legal noise. We already comply with that framework. We're not a financial advisor. We're a data infrastructure platform." The legal director cleared his throat. "Not under the new interpretation." Nathan turned to him. "What interpretation?" The legal director shifted. "They're broadening the definition of influence. Not direct instruction, indirect framing, predictive weighting, behavioral nudging." Nathan's eyes narrowed. "You're telling me they're redefining influence as existence?" No one answered. Nathan looked back at the sentence, then the red line, then the sentence again. "Run me through it," he said. The strategy lead spoke. "Our AI doesn't give advice, but it structures information. It highlights certain paths. That now qualifies as influence, which qualifies as facilitation, which qualifies as liability." Nathan felt something cold settle in his chest. "So if someone uses our platform and loses money, we're responsible. And if they gain money, we're responsible. And if the market crashes, we're responsible. And if someone claims emotional distress from a bad decision, we're responsible." Nathan turned slowly. 7 faces, smart, experienced, human, all waiting, all powerless. 200 million, he asked quietly. That's the conservative estimate, Evelyn said. Nathan closed his eyes. Not because he was overwhelmed, because he was trying not to feel something. Anger. Not at them, not at regulators, not at the world, at himself. He had built this company on a belief that intelligence, when structured cleanly, made the world better, that clarity reduced risk, that information empowered choice. Now clarity itself was being declared dangerous. He opened his eyes. Can we change the model? The market analyst shook his head. It's the core product. Can we delay launch? The operations lead shook his head. The contracts are signed. Can we pull out of affected markets? The regional director shook her head. It's global. Nathan felt the first real emotion break through his control. Not fear, not panic. Helplessness. He hated it. He hated the way it made his body feel heavy. He hated the way it made his thoughts slow. He hated that this room, where he had solved wars between departments, saved failing acquisitions, rebuilt entire divisions, had become a place where nothing moved. The room where momentum died. He stepped back from the table, ran a hand through his hair. What am I missing? He asked quietly. No one answered, because the truth was simple. They weren't missing anything. They were trapped inside it. Nathan turned toward the glass wall. The city felt suddenly far away, a museum of motion, a place where things still happened, where people still decided, where coffee was still made and spilled and remade and laughed over, where the world still moved forward while this room was frozen inside a line of text. He exhaled. We need air, he said. No one moved. I need air, he corrected. He picked up his jacket, left it behind, opened the door. The hallway felt narrow after the cathedral of glass. Quiet, carpeted, private. He walked without direction, not to escape, to feel something that wasn't numbers. He passed offices, assistants, people who stood up when they saw him, then sat when he waved them down. He reached the elevator, then stopped, because the smell reached him first. Coffee. Fresh, warm, human, not filtered, not abstracted, real. He followed it down a side hallway to a small break area that most executives never used. 2 tables, a counter, a machine, and behind it, a woman. Young, focused, hair tied back loosely, blue shirt with the company logo stitched on the sleeve. She was pouring milk into a cup with the kind of care usually reserved for something fragile. She looked up when she sensed him, not startled, just curious. Their eyes met. She didn't recognize him, not as anything special, just another man in a building full of men in suits. Coffee? She asked. Her voice was calm, unhurried, not trying to impress. Yes, Nathan said. His voice surprised him. It sounded tired. She nodded. What kind? Black. She smiled faintly. Brave. He almost smiled back. She poured, handed him the cup. Their fingers brushed. Nothing electric, nothing cinematic, just contact, just present. Long day? She asked. He looked at her. At the absence of calculation in her eyes, at the absence of fear, at the absence of expectation. Yes, he said. She nodded, as if that was the most reasonable thing in the world. Same. He took a sip. It was good. Not exceptional, not branded, not optimized. Just good. He leaned back against the counter. Can I ask you something strange? He said. She shrugged lightly. People usually do. He hesitated, then said, if someone gives you information that changes your decision, are they responsible for the outcome? She looked at him, really looked this time, not evaluating, just considering. She tilted her head slightly. That depends, she said. On what? On whether they tried to control you or just tried to help you see. Nathan felt something stir. What's the difference? She thought for a moment, then said, control is when someone wants your choice to be theirs. Help is when they want your choice to be clearer. He stared at her. She didn't notice. She was wiping the counter, moving cups. living. Nathan felt the room upstairs fade. The red line, the sentence, the trap. Something about her words didn't solve anything, but it loosened something. He took another sip. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked up. "Lena." He nodded. "Nathan." She smiled politely. No recognition, no shift, just a name. "Nice to meet you, Nathan." He watched her for a moment longer, then straightened. "Thank you for the coffee." "Anytime." He turned, walked back toward the elevators, not with an answer, but with something better. A crack, a place where light might enter. He stepped inside the elevator. The doors closed, and the red line waited upstairs. He returned to the boardroom. 7 faces turned. Expectation, fear, hope, all tangled together. Nathan walked to the head of the table, picked up the remote, changed the slide, back to the sentence. He looked at it, then at them, then said quietly, "We've been asking the wrong question." They leaned forward, not because he commanded them, but because something in his voice had changed. "We've been asking how to avoid responsibility," he said, "when we should be asking how to redefine it." They waited, and the room, for the first time in hours, felt like it was breathing again. And the room, for the first time in hours, felt like it was breathing again. Nathan let the silence exist, not as absence, as space. 7 people watched him, waiting for the shape of the future to arrive in his next sentence. He didn't rush it. He had learned over years of leading rooms like this that speed often looked like confidence, but usually masked fear. This time, he wasn't afraid of the pause. He was listening to it. "We are not being punished for giving information," he said slowly. "We are being punished for pretending information is neutral." The legal director shifted. "What does that mean in practice?" Nathan walked toward the glass wall again, not to escape this time, but to orient himself inside it. "Every product we build assumes a moral position," he said. "We just don't like to admit it. We hide behind words like platform and tool and neutrality, so we don't have to be responsible for the shape of what we create." He turned back. "That era is over." Evelyn's fingers tightened on her pen. "So what are you suggesting?" Nathan took a breath. "We stop pretending we're invisible." No one spoke. The strategy lead frowned. "That would require us to take responsibility for outcomes we can't control." Nathan nodded. "Yes." A quiet ripple moved through the room. Fear, recognition, resistance. Nathan saw it. He didn't fight it. He understood it. "That's what they're forcing us to do anyway," he continued. "The only difference is whether we let them define what that responsibility means, or whether we do." A market analyst leaned forward. "You're saying we embrace the liability?" "I'm saying we redefine it," Nathan replied. He clicked the remote. A new slide appeared. Not numbers, words. A framework. 3 columns: disclosure, agency, accountability. "We redesign the product so that influence is not hidden," Nathan said. "We make it explicit, transparent, visible. We stop nudging in the shadows and start guiding in the light." The legal director's eyes narrowed. "That would change the user experience." "Yes." "It would slow decisions." "Yes." "It would reduce engagement." "Probably." Silence. Nathan met each of their gazes. "But it would also do something else," he said. "What?" Evelyn asked. "It would make us honest." The word felt heavy in the room. Honest was not a corporate word. Honest was what people said when they were tired, or brave, or out of options. Nathan clicked again. Another slide. A simple sentence. "We do not decide for you. We help you decide better." "This becomes the core of everything," Nathan said. "Every interface, every recommendation, every model. We shift from prediction to perspective." The strategy lead exhaled slowly. "This is a philosophical pivot," she said, "not a technical one." Nathan nodded. "Yes." She tilted her head. "And philosophy doesn't save $200 million. Nathan met her eyes. "But trust does." The room was still. We stop being a machine people use, he said. We become a partner people choose. The operations lead shook his head gently. This is risky. Yes. This could fail. Yes. This could cost us more. Yes. Silence. Then Evelyn spoke. What if it works? Nathan smiled faintly. Then we don't just save the company, he said. We change what companies are allowed to be. No one moved. No one nodded. But something had shifted. Not agreement. Possibility. The strategy lead finally spoke. How long? Nathan glanced at the window, at the fading light, at the city moving on. 6 weeks, he said. The legal director laughed softly. You're insane. Yes. Evelyn looked at the red line, then at Nathan, then back at the red line. Do it, she said quietly. The room inhaled. The die was cast. The next days blurred, not with chaos, with construction. Whiteboards filled, interfaces redrawn, legal language rewritten, model behavior audited. Every assumption pulled into the light, not as accusation, as examination. Nathan spent hours with engineers, not directing, listening. He asked questions no CEO had ever asked them before. What do you think this does to people? When you built this, what future did you imagine? What would you want this to say if your mother used it? The engineer stared at him, then fought, then answered. Not with metrics, with meaning. Designers wept in meetings, not because they were overwhelmed, because someone finally cared about why. Legal rewrote entire frameworks, not to protect the company, but to protect the user. Marketing burned old decks, created new language, not about dominance, about partnership. Words softened, not in weakness, in clarity. Nathan barely slept. He drank too much coffee, ate too little, walked too much. But he felt alive, more alive than he had in years. He stopped by the coffee counter every morning, not because he needed caffeine, but because he needed grounding. Lena noticed. You're back, she said one morning. He smiled. I am. She handed him his cup before he asked. Black, brave. He laughed. Yes. She studied him. You look different. How? Like someone who's building something instead of defending something. Nathan felt the truth land gently. I am, he said. She nodded. Good. That was all. Not praise, not validation, just recognition. 3 weeks in, the regulators called. Not angry, curious. They had seen the shift, the language, the framework. They wanted to understand. Nathan spoke, not defensively, not strategically, honestly. We believe influence exists, he said. We believe pretending it doesn't is dangerous. We're choosing to treat users like adults instead of targets. There was silence on the line. Then someone said quietly, We've never heard a company say that before. Nathan replied, That's probably the problem. The call ended without resolution, but without threat. 5 weeks in, the markets noticed. Not in panic, in attention. Journalists called. Analysts speculated. Competitors watched. Some mocked. Some worried. Some copied badly. But something was happening. The red line slowed. Not rising, not falling. Hovering, suspended, like breath held between fear and hope. The night before launch, Nathan stood alone in the boardroom. Not the old one, a new one. Same glass, same city. Different feeling. The screen showed the new interface. Not sleek, not seductive. Clear, human, honest. He thought of Lena's words, control versus help. He thought of the sentence that almost destroyed them. He thought of how close he had come to believing the room was the world. It wasn't. The world was bigger, messier, more human, and somehow kinder. He turned off the lights, left the room, and trusted what they had built. The launch went live at 9 o'clock a.m. No fireworks, no spectacle, just an update. The world didn't end. Users noticed, not in rage, in pause, in reflection. Some left, some stayed, some leaned in. The ones who stayed changed. They read more, they clicked slower, they made fewer decisions, better ones. The company watched, the world watched. The red line wavered, then slowly began to rise. And Nathan stood at the window, watching the city glow again. When the message arrived on his phone that made his breath catch. And Nathan stood at the window, watching the city glow again. When the message arrived on his phone that made his breath catch. It wasn't from a regulator. It wasn't from a journalist. It wasn't from the board. It was from a user. A single message forwarded by the product team. No metrics, no analysis, just words. I lost less than I would have because your system stopped me from rushing. Nathan read it twice, then again. Not because he didn't understand it, but because he did. He felt something in his chest loosen. Not triumph, relief. The kind that arrives after holding a breath you didn't know you were holding. He forwarded the message to the board. No commentary, just the sentence. Then he put his phone away. And for the first time since the red line appeared, he allowed himself to sit. The weeks that followed did not explode into victory. They unfolded into something quieter, more difficult, more meaningful. The company began receiving stories. Not complaints, not praise. Stories. People who hesitated before decisions. People who read the disclosures. People who argued with the interface. People who thanked it. People who hated it. People who trusted it. People who felt seen by it. It didn't create certainty. It created awareness. And awareness, Nathan was learning, was heavier than confidence, but lighter than regret. The red line climbed. Slowly, steadily. Not to where it had been, to somewhere new, not as tall, not as fast, but stable. $200 million did not vanish. It dissolved into growth, into loyalty, into a reputation that could not be bought. Not everyone was happy. A senior executive resigned. "This isn't the company I joined," he said. Nathan nodded. "I know." Investors pushed. "This is inefficient." Nathan agreed. Yes. Competitors copied the language, not the intention. Users noticed. They always do. One evening, Nathan stayed late again. Not from pressure, from curiosity. He walked the building, listened, felt. He stopped by the coffee counter. Lena was closing, wiping down the machine. "You look tired," she said. He smiled. "You look wise," she laughed. "That's not what tired people usually say." He leaned against the counter. "You helped save my company," he said. She looked at him. Really looked this time, then shook her head gently. "No." "You did," she considered, then said, "I just said a sentence." "Yes, that's not the same thing." Nathan smiled softly. "It is." She watched him. "You changed it." "I listened to it," she shrugged. "Same difference." They stood in silence for a moment. Not awkward, just shared. "Why did you say it?" Nathan asked. She tilted her head. "What?" "That sentence, about control and help." She thought, then said, "Because someone once tried to control me." Nathan didn't interrupt. "And someone else helped me see," she continued. "I survived one, I grew because of the other." Nathan felt the weight of that settle. "Thank you," he said. She nodded. "Good." That was all. Months passed. The company stabilized, then strengthened. Not as a predator, as a presence. The board changed, younger, wiser, less loud, more curious. Nathan stopped wearing ties, not as rebellion, as honesty. The building felt different, not quieter, warmer. Lena left, not dramatically. She finished her degree, moved on. He didn't stop her. He wished her well. She hugged him once, brief, human. "Don't forget," she said. "I won't," he promised. Years later, when analysts wrote about the shift, they called it a strategy, a pivot, a rebrand. Nathan never corrected them, because language is always trying to make things smaller than they are. But sometimes, in quiet moments, he would think of the coffee counter, of a woman who wasn't afraid of words, of a sentence that didn't solve a problem, but reframed a soul, and he would feel grateful, not as a leader, not as a founder, as a human, who had been reminded that power was not the ability to move numbers, but the courage to move meaning. And in that understanding, the company found its future, and Nathan found something he hadn't known he was missing all along. And in that understanding, the company found its future, and Nathan found something he hadn't known he was missing all along. It wasn't peace, not yet. It was direction. Peace is something that arrives after you stop walking. Direction is what lets you walk without fear. Nathan felt it most in the quiet moments, when the building was empty, when the city dimmed, when his phone did not vibrate, when there was nothing to solve, only something to notice. He noticed that the world no longer felt like a system to master. It felt like a story to participate in. That shift did not make him softer. It made him steadier. The invitation arrived in an unremarkable envelope. Cream paper, black ink, no logos, no urgency, just a line. "We would like you to speak." It was from the Regulatory Council, not for defense, not for explanation, for reflection. Nathan stood in a different room weeks later. Not glass, wood, old, human. He looked out at people who had spent their lives trying to prevent harm. He did not tell them what he had built. He told them what he had learned. "That influence is not a weapon," he said. "It's a relationship. And every relationship carries responsibility." No one argued, because they weren't there to fight. They were there to understand. When he finished, there was no applause. Only silence. The good kind. The company changed again. Not in direction, in depth. They invested in education, in literacy, in helping people understand not just what they chose, but how they chose. They partnered with schools, with communities, with groups that had never been profitable, but had always been necessary. The shareholders complained less. The users trusted more. The world leaned in. One morning, Nathan walked into the building and saw something new. A small sign by the entrance, not corporate, handwritten. Clarity before certainty. He stood there longer than necessary, smiled, then went upstairs. Years passed, not in leaps, in layers. The red line became irrelevant, not because money stopped mattering, but because meaning started mattering more. The company did well, but more importantly, it did good. Not as a slogan, as a practice. Nathan aged, not in appearance, in presence. He spoke slower, listened longer, asked better questions. He stopped being the man who solved everything and became the man who helped others see what needed solving. On a quiet evening, he returned to the coffee counter. It was different now. New machines, new people, but the shape of it remained. A place where nothing was optimized. A place where things were made by hand. He ordered black. The barista smiled. "Brave," she said. He laughed. Some things travel. He sat alone, watched steam rise, thought of Lena, of the moment, of the crack where light entered. He realized then that the most important thing she had given him was not a sentence. It was permission. Permission to stop performing certainty. Permission to admit he didn't know. Permission to change. He finished his coffee, left a generous tip, stood, paused, then wrote something on a napkin, folded it, left it on the counter. Not for anyone specific, just for whoever might need it. It said, "Help is not control." He walked out, into the city, into the world, not above it, inside it. And for the first time in his life, Nathan Cross did not feel like he was carrying the future alone. He felt like he was walking with it. And that was enough.